It's time for something that I've been slowly playing for a few weeks, Hellslave. It's an old school dungeon crawler sort of RPG in which you fight the legions of hell in an attempt to save the world. Yeah, I know, it's a typical plot for this type of world, but there's one slight difference. In order to combat these demonic foes, you offer yourself to the legions of the Underworld to fight fire with fire. The story starts that you live in a typical medieval village, where nothing is easy, but you aren't in complete poverty either. Hell breaks through, fiery creatures burst through the earth, and lots of innocent people die. To combat this, you go to a local cult and offer up your soul in exchange for power beyond your wildest dreams. This is all told to you in a fantastically dark, hand-drawn comic book style panels. After all of this, you come to the character creation screen. There's really not a lot of options, with most of the stuff being cosmetic only, and like typical RPGs, after a few hours, you won't even remember what you look like due to the armor that you're wearing covering up your looks. The most important part, however, is the choice of the demonic god that you are aligning yourself with. You have 6 options: Leviathan, Lucifer, Beelzebub, Baal, Satan, or Asmodeus. Each of these kings of hell have different traits and powers, and will dictate your starting abilities and skill tree setup. You then get your strength, murder the cult members, and are brought to the world map. Here you'll find that the entirety of the game can be played using solely the mouse, which is pretty awesome. Right-clicking moves your avatar around and interacts with certain areas, while left-clicking typically talks to the villagers or selects choices. From here, you speak with a few NPCs and are told to check the local tomb to see what happened to one of the villagers. Entering this tomb, you'll learn how the dungeons of the game work. Once again, you right-click to move your character, complete with dramatic footsteps that echo throughout the empty rooms. You'll see various points of interest, denoted by swirling circles. Clicking on these will bring up one of many options: an observation of the area, a place that you can search for loot, or perhaps a demonic shrine, among other things. Searching for treasure is a simple extra click, and if you find something, the inventory screen will be brought up, allowing you to transfer over items. Be careful though, as some areas are trapped, and encountering these forces you to click on the screen at 3 specific points. You don't get any treasure for this, but if you succeed, which you should because these are incredibly easy, you get an extra 15% experience points for the remainder of the dungeon. And yes, these can stack up. The demonic shrines should also be seeked, as they grant more powers to your character in the dungeon that you are traversing. At these altars, you are given 3 options from various demonic higher-ups. Some of these are much more beneficial than others. Having more experience points awarded or a higher bleeding effect in combat is much more useful than, say, getting a small, measly amount of gold. Again, these special upgrades do stack for the dungeon, so in case it isn't evident, definitely explore every nook and cranny of these stages. Inevitably, you are going to run into a nasty being that you'll have to fight. The combat is easy enough to understand, but it might take some time to master. But here's how it works. Firstly, you never get any additional party members, so it's always you against up to 3 opponents. Your abilities are separated into your normal melee attacks, spells that are powered by mana, and strikes that consume rage points. At the start, you'll be relying on your standard strike and a magical lightning bolt that does a paltry amount of damage. Either way, performing actions causes fatigue. See the bar at the top of the screen? That's, in essence, a time gauge. By hovering the mouse over one of your abilities, you'll see a change in the meter, dictating when you'll be able to attack again. The game also shows when the enemies will strike, as well as a diamond on the top part that appears to signal 10-second increments, which is important for poisoning and bleeding effects. Understanding the fatigue system and managing your time is the key to winning battles in Hellslave. Of course, you aren't going to be able to keep casting your best abilities over and over to defeat the minions of hell. Many of the skills have requirements that need to be met in order to use the spell again in the current encounter. Usually, these consist of either slay an enemy, go into critical health state, or turn into a demon. Regardless though, all skills are reset, as well as your rage, when the battle ends, so during the next encounter, everything starts from scratch, with all abilities at the ready, providing you have the means to use them. And yeah, that's right, you can turn into a demon yourself. To do so, you must first defeat at least 4 enemies. The game helpfully keeps an ongoing tally on the right side of the screen to help you remember and know when you can convert into your demonic state. Doing so will grant some decent boosts for a few turns. For example, higher melee strength and a higher chance of critical hits. After a while, you'll be turned back to your normal mortal form, and will have to slay more beings if you wish to become a demon again. I also mentioned the critical health state, which the game calls survival mode. If you are given a fatal wound, the encounter freezes and you go into this survival mode with only one health point left. It's your last chance effort to save your hide and live to fight another day by either healing or obliterating whatever opposition stands in front of you. Many healing abilities reset once you enter survival mode, so healing should be your immediate priority. However, you can only go into survival mode once. After this, it's the end of the road for you. But then again, with the power of hell coursing through your veins, really the only drawback is being sent back to the last village you were at, and needing to start whatever dungeon you were working on over. Not really a big deal, to be perfectly honest, as you don't lose any experience, gold, or equipment. One last thing with the combat. There's also a momentum mechanic. At defined intervals, you will see a gray diamond on the time gauge. Once this becomes active, you are given an option to which momentum-based ability you want to trigger. These are handpicked by you in the powers menu from a selection of about 12 abilities. Maybe you want to load up on healing powers like instantly gaining 20% health or converting half of your next strike's damage to life. Or maybe you want the instant satisfaction of turning into a demon. Perhaps you want to steel yourself for upcoming attacks and cut the next few blows in half. There's plenty of stuff to work with, depending on your playstyle. There are also some other mechanics at work, but truthfully I didn't mess with them much, but I'll just briefly touch on them here. There is a magical scroll that you get that gets you various words of power. It seems like you get one new word in stock with every enemy defeated up to 10. They don't use a ton of fatigue, but the effects they give you are marginal at best. You also get a small selection of battle poses. These are more useful, but again, to me it was a set it and forget it kind of deal. Poses typically allowed you to become a bit more defensive as the fight wore on and you took damage. I kept either the one where my armor level went up as I lost more health, or the one where my evasion increased as I got closer to death. Again, depending on your playstyle, you may want to opt for one of the other ones. Speaking about customizing the game to your playstyle, there are a large amount of active and passive abilities to unlock in the two appropriate skill trees. As you unlock a skill, all skills adjacent to it become available for purchase on your next level up. This adds an extra level of strategy to the game. Do you get the skill that is more beneficial for your current area? Or do you get a lower tiered ability so that it unlocks a more powerful attack on your next level up or two? This system tends to work fantastically. Ultimately, I found the best way to succeed at Hellslave is to buff yourself up enough so that your attacks give devastating amounts of bleeding and poisoning to your foes. These effects cause damage every 10 seconds, denoted by that diamond I talked about earlier. Once that hits, enemies take lingering damage, and the status effect is decreased for a bit. These effects can keep being increased by your attacks though, and in the end game, this can cause hundreds of points of damage within seconds. And when you're going up against a boss with 3,000 health points, well, every little bit can be helpful. Although I absolutely love the combat, I must admit it can be a bit chaotic at times, with it becoming borderline impossible to follow everything that's going on. With the constant poison damage, screen dimming to show attacks, numbers all over the place, strange abilities being used by your foes, and blood flowing everywhere, sometimes when it's your turn, you'll just have to pause to get your bearings. Another thing I must admit is that I thought the gold, for the most part, was completely useless in the game. Most of the equipment that you'll be using will be looted from searched zones, or found from the corpses of the enemies that you just slaughtered. Not once did I ever buy anything other than crafting components from the villagers. And healing at an inn only costs 3 gold, which can be found within one encounter, combat, or otherwise. There's also not a lot of crafting recipes, but when you find one, you damn well better create it. These items are insanely useful, and after a while, the weapons I created were the ones I stuck with. With that said though, I feel like the crafting system was a bit half-baked, as there's only a bit over a half dozen items to build. It just feels like a missed opportunity. Graphically, as you can see, the game keeps with that dark hand-drawn style seen in the opening scenes of the game. There are a lot of reds and blacks used, and it works to build the game's atmosphere very well. Sound-wise, there's a lot of ambient music that fits the area you are in. However, the sounds are where the game shines. In addition to the echoing footsteps on the stone floors, you'll get horse hooves on the world map, a frightening thumping musical track in combat, and best of all, a strangely satisfying splattering sound when hitting enemies in a fight. Seriously? That never got old. Hellslave took me about an hour or so to get into it, but when I did, I was hooked. Each level can be completed in roughly 30 minutes, with the game as a whole taking about 12 or 13 hours to complete. And once you finish the boss rush and final demon at the end of the game, you are thrown right into New Game Plus, where you are now on Inferno mode with creatures that are exponentially more challenging. It's one of those games you can just sit back and enjoy due to its simplistic nature, but make no mistake, this game isn't exactly a cakewalk in later levels. At least by that time, though, you'll know what you're doing. I hope. Give this one a shot if it looks like it appeals to you. Final score? 6 out of 7. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.